Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics, and in this video on this World Penguin Day, I'd like to bring together some of the major ways in which Trump's tariff strategy hasn't merely failed, but actively backfired. Not just in terms of a loss of confidence in the stock and bond markets. Trump has tried to dismiss that as jitters or being yippy, as he called it. But in terms of cast iron examples of how the tariff policy has produced effects which are just embarrassingly the reverse of what was intended. But first, for daily news and commentary, please hit the subscribe button to stay notified. So yes, it's World Penguin Day. Yes, really. Pretty much the only good thing about Windows 11 is that it keeps me informed about these things. And in honour of arguably the least deserving of Trump's tariff victims, the poor old penguins, I thought I'd run down some of the humiliating ways in which Trump's tariffs have backfired spectacularly. Some of them I've discussed before. Some are brand new because, do you know what? The examples never stop coming. The first has to, doesn't it, centre on car manufacturing. So I discussed yesterday how Trump is exempting car parts from tariffs now because someone has finally managed to explain to him that his especially high tariffs on those, 25% universally, actually hurts American car manufacture. Perhaps it was the news from Volvo last week ago today, which was used on the flip chart to explain the problems to Trump. The orange one announced multiple purposes for his tariff strategy. I've said before, some of them contradict themselves. But one of them was to have production relocate to America to bring it back, right? Make America great again. And he was particularly keen to see this happen for car manufacturing. He's one of the ones he's made a big song and dance about. Then last week, Volvo announced that it was going to have to lay off 800 workers. Not in China, not in Europe, not even in Canada. Now, in the United States, how does that work? Trump is using the tariffs to protect American car production. Yeah, he did the opposite. It's what happens when you let a cretin not just run your country, but implement a policy which will fundamentally reform the global economy, which America has been the big winner of. And it's not just cars where this plan to bring production back to America isn't quite working out as expected. So, as a result of Trump's tariffs, Apple has said that it plans to shift production for iPhones sold in America away from China. Well, that sounds better for the MAGA faithful, doesn't it? Some good news at last. One of Trump's munchkins, Lutnick, was talking about bringing these jobs back to America. And he said it was, oh, he'd love to see it. So Americans screwing in all those screws during the assembly of an iPhone. So good to know the Commerce Secretary has a Victorian age notion of factory work. Can you imagine the cost of an iPhone if they used people rather than robots to physically assemble the phones in any country, let alone the USA? Anyway, although Apple are announcing that production will move from China because of the very high tariffs on Chinese imports, and even though Trump has said that they're going to come right down, they don't know how much they're going to come down. So yes, they're moving production away from China, but there's a couple of things to know. The first is it is only for the phones which are intended for sale in the USA. Nobody else is imposing these tariffs on China, so worldwide production remains as is. After all, it costs a lot of money to shift production. But the second thing to note is they're not shifting that production to America either. That would still make the cost of an iPhone in the USA far too expensive. So they're going to move production to India instead. So in Trump's drive to bring production to America, our first two examples both include a shift of production, but one is away from America. And in the other case, it's from one non-America part of the world to another. Never mind, I'm sure Trump will look after the farmers. Remember, the reason we keep getting Republican presidents who lose the popular vote, although that did not happen on this occasion, is that the founding fathers decided that not everyone's vote should be equal. Now, I appreciate they had some noble intentions here to balance things out between rural and sort of urban areas, but nonetheless, the result is that rural areas are electorally more powerful. And Republicans do well in these areas. So Trump obviously is not going to screw the farmers over, but I already talked about how China have stopped importing beef from America, worth over $1.5 billion US, and are buying it from Australia instead now. American soybean farmers have also struggled with the tariffs, and Brazilian farmers are benefiting from that one. Well, now the latest news is that although China hasn't blocked imports of American pork, thousands of tons of orders have been cancelled anyway due to the cost of the retaliatory tariffs. In fact, it's a bigger cancellation of orders since 2020, the pandemic. Maybe this will give us a chance to give Liz Truss her pork markets now. I don't actually know who's going to benefit from this one, but it's not going to be American farmers. Trump says he'll be compensating farmers, but in his rush to cut budgets to pay for massive tax breaks for the rich, it's not obvious to me how he's going to do that. Also, he might need to get a move on because those farmers are losing money right now. Then there's an example of the tariffs backfiring that literally everyone who was not working in the White House could see coming a mile off. Trump wants to boost manufacturing in the US, right? Okay, but even if he had a credible plan to do that, like the one Biden had, they're still going to need raw materials. China controls 80% of the market in rare earth metals. Part of the reason is that they naturally have a lot of their own deposits, but part of the reason is also refining them is very nasty. Extracting and refining the minerals is a local pollution nightmare that we'd really rather not think about, especially as we need them for technology needed to protect our biosphere. So in order to sort of save the global environment, you've got to screw up some local environments, right? America would not want to start refining its own minerals. It would inevitably be incredibly unpopular in whichever part of the USA, and it would be a Republican supporting part of the USA, you tried to cite the works. So even stripping Ukraine of their deposits, which will take a long time to even set up, will not help them. Basically, American manufacture of a lot of high value products is utterly dependent upon China for the raw materials. Be a shame if China was to, I don't know, restrict exports of these vital minerals on targeted US companies, wouldn't it? Oh wait, that's what they did. And it was reported by the Washington Post that it's this which may have caused Trump to carry out some of his climb downs this week. If so, then far from using his tariffs to make America great again, he will actually have just exposed how dependent America is on China. Whereas China is giving the strong impression, do you know what, we can just get American products somewhere else. This is like the end of a bug's life, isn't it? Where the grasshoppers exposed their own weakness by just pushing too far. There are individual winners from these tariffs. American beef farmers are not one of them. You know, you've got Australian farmers, Brazilian farmers, Indian factory workers, plus whoever ends up getting the increased sales of pork to China, may or may not be Liz Truss, we don't know yet. I don't imagine they're planning on cutting back on the old char-char, so they'll be getting it from somewhere. I'm still waiting to see any winners in America, apart from maybe those who use Trump's tips to make a killing on the stock market at the expense of the American public, especially those whose pension pots are a little bit lighter now. Have you ever seen a policy go so badly wrong? Like even Brexit didn't collapse this quickly. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, please click the like button and subscribe for further content. If you'd like to support the channel further, you can click the join button for memberships. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.